Hey folks, thanks for joining me today. And our special guest is Steve Torso. He's the co-founder and managing director of Wholesale Investor, the largest capital raising platform in Australia, showcasing private pre-IPO and ASX listed companies. So you may have seen his regular contributions on all things private investment in publications such as the AFR, BRW, Sydney Morning Herald, Startup Smart, Smart Company, Sky Business Switzer, and switzer.com.au. And on top of that, Steve has shared his capital raising thought leadership through keynotes at the Australian Stock Exchange, Macquarie University, UTS, and many other organizations. Thanks for joining us today, Steve.
Thanks, Friska.
My first question is about innovation. So many companies today tout that it's one of their core values, but in my experience, it's often professed, but very rarely practiced. So you as an investor, how is this weighted when you're looking at investing in companies? And so what are the signals that you look out for?
Well, I'd say this is like the whole area of innovation is our area, right? So every single day we're dealing with companies that are looking to innovate. And I know, obviously, noting that your background, sort of where you sort of led change managers in the corporate area, what we've observed in sort of in looking at corporates is that when you mentioned about like they notionally want to talk about it, the discussing about it, the implementing of it, that's all nice and fun. But the hard part is just consistent execution day in and day out, because it is like the other side of innovation is it's massively frustrating, right? Because when you're effectively, every time you go into new territory, there's new challenges that you face. And with those new challenges, you have to come up with new solutions. So for us, I said, we're always looking for companies which have that potential. And I suppose this is what the power of innovation is it's, you're effectively looking for companies that can solve problems that maybe sit in either in that gray area, right? That people aren't sort of currently aware of. Like, for example, the buy now, pay later boom, right? No one really understood the issue that, you know, millennials or Gen Z had issue with getting credit cards.
Yeah.
And buy now, pay later took over that sort of, you know, that gray area or that sort of, that gray space that wasn't a massive problem for you or I, but they tapped into a generational trend. And then the second part to that is there's opportunities which don't currently exist that innovation then does turn into completely new markets. And one of the ones that I love about is that if you think about, like, whilst the area existed, Airbnb taking on the sort of rentals area in the way that they did and allowing people to sort of manage and host people in their own homes, it created all sorts of other businesses and opportunities. And also, so what you sort of learn to love about innovation is it's the first layer of change is what you see with the companies that come through. And then the second layers are actually even more interesting. It's all the different opportunities that are created around those sort of first layers.
Yeah, very interesting. And so you not only look for companies that are innovative to invest in, but you also live and breathe it. I mean, quite an impressive track record from Glossy magazine to international showcase events, a subscriber base of over 31,000 high net worths, and $61 million raised in 2021 alone. And geez, we're not even done with the year. So incredible. So internally, what systems have you put in place to enable your company to continuously evolve and grow?
So there's a couple of things. There's obviously the human part, and then there's the software component. So the first part for us is we, about 2 to 3 years ago, we were having a lot of challenges sort of internally. And we knew, like, we actually brought in assistance sort of in the talent area to come into the company and to start making the important changes that were required. And then as part of that, what was important for us, like the getting rid of the magazine, that was one part, but this was probably the most important change because we needed to go from a mindset that I had got into where I was passionate about the space, but I didn't really understand the idea of building a high performance team, right? So that was the most important part. So it come down to the vision, you know, effectively the vision that we have for the company. What are the core values that sit underneath that vision? And then also, how do you then build a team where it's right person, right role, and understanding that balance of when you're in growth mode of you need to balance out innovation as well as you need to balance out structure at the same time. And that's like you're always wrestling between those two, because
Yeah.
when you're working with people, you've got some that are very strong on structure and that struggle with changes at the last minute. Whereas then you have other team members who love innovation, love change, love adapting to new opportunities, but then struggle with formality, structure, and then the execution. So, you know, for us, there was starting to build that team from that sort of structure perspective. And then when COVID sort of come at that stage for us, we were an online to offline business. So we were focused in generating interest online, and then we would take it to our offline activities. And we basically pivoted within 4 days to being completely virtual. And then within 2 weeks, we were generating revenue again as a completely online. So it sped up what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But you can only do that. You can only manage that change if you have the right people in the right places, in the right roles, and that also you're sort of articulating the importance of that vision. So that was probably been the biggest transformation for us. And as you know, change comes with all sorts of different wrestles and problems and all that sort of stuff. But it has been probably one of the most fascinating things I've experienced in our sort of 12-year history.
Wow, 4 days, just gobsmacked. And so my last question then is about the future. So what are the top trends in the investment sector that do you think will play out in the next few years?
So the obvious one that underlies everything is everyone can see that software is eating everything, right? That is probably the sort of baseline one that most people sort of talk about. Ones that I personally enjoy, that I really like looking at. For me, I love everything that's happening in the renewable energy space. And as I said, it goes back to, you've got the renewable energy as an area, but then there's a whole bunch of things as far as financing, as far as infrastructure. And I think what people will see is that what's exciting is there'll be a whole bunch of new opportunities created off the back of that. And, you know, people like Elon Musk and Tesla and what they're doing have created incredible excitement for the space. So not only will you see a lot of innovation in the area, but you'll see a lot of investment dollars flowing into it. And then the other one, actually, there's probably two more that I really enjoy. So the other one is the personalized healthcare area. Obviously, a big believer in the health space, but the opportunity for founders and startups to come up with innovative solutions to help people with personalized healthcare solutions other than the usual structure of go through different drug trials, you know, and then have sort of data and testing, and then have sort of blanket measures about whether something should be, you know, is considered dangerous or not, but understanding that everyone has got their own sort of DNA structure, and therefore there's a personalized healthcare to it. And then the other one that I'm a fan of, sort of well known, is I fascinated by the blockchain and cryptocurrency